Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to 782. There is an arid pleasure. Now, this is an interesting poem. In many ways, it's going to take us back to our study of 391 and the killing power of frost. You guys will maybe remember this one. A visitor in marl who influences flowers till they are orderly as busts and elegant as glass, who visits in the night and just before the sun concludes his glistening interview, caresses and is gone, but whom his fingers touched and where his feet have run, and whatsoever mouth he kissed is as it had not been. The power, of course, of nature to give us certain symbolisms. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 781 poems. We just finished with 781 to wait an hour is long. Now here is another poem, much like the one previous, that loves to play with opposites. She says it this way. There is an arid pleasure as different from joy as frost is different from dew. Like element are they. Each one rejoices flowers, and one the flowers abhor, the finest honey, curdled, is worthless to the bee. Consider that, of course, a bee can only come to a flower that has not been touched and killed by frost. Yes? It can't make any honey out of a flower that has been jacked by frost. Notice, she'll begin with this idea of arid. There is an arid pleasure. Now, we're going to see this word one other time. She only uses it one other time in 1679. Rather arid delight, if contentment accrue, make an abstemious is ecstasy, not so good as joy. But rapture's expense must not be inured with a tomorrow knocking and the rent unpaid. This idea of an arid pleasure is a pleasure that you have, but there's no joy in it. Notice we talk about similes as what? Using what, like, or as. Notice Emily, she'll use both words in this poem. As different from joy. In other words, you can have pleasure without joy, she says. Notice, she says, as frost is different from the dew. They're both water. Yes, they're both water. Only one kills, and what? One provides life and sustenance. Like element are they. In other words, two sides of the same coin. For those of us who like our study of Taoism, the yin-yang symbol, there must be both for there to be life. Yet one, notice, rejoices flowers, that is to say the dew, helps the flowers. And one, of course, frost, the flowers abhor. Notice we go from arid to abhor. The finest honey, curdled, that is to say the flower is dead, is worthless to the bee. The symbiotic nature of nature is for Emily, I think, central here. I think her point at 2a is that not all pleasures are actually joy-filled. That in fact there is distinctions between these opposites, although both opposites are necessary, much like, as we said, our yin-yang symbol. And that, I think, is at 2b, the opposites game that's being played, and of course the similes game that's being played as well. She uses both like as well as in this poem. At 3a, well, again, we're back to 391 and the killing power of frost, no doubt. And the ways in which, as we said, so many systems of wisdom traditions, we've mentioned the yin-yang symbol that comes to mind, will play the game. And of course, Blake's Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience can come to mind here, no doubt. Finally, at 3b, what was a time in your life when you had pleasure but no joy? And what has been a frost in your life that killed maybe a bit of that pleasure or joy? Thank you.